So it's a interesting personal, professional story. I call it my baby sometimes because this comes from a very personal interest that I had while I was a student, and that it has continued to allow me to be not only engaged in the UN processes, not only understand the global agenda of the United Nations in many perspectives, but also being able to make our small effort to implement the agenda in Mexico, and being able to talk to many people about what sustainability is, its importance, and all of that. So so that happened since 2014, and I can't believe it's 2021 now. And the organization has expanded so much, and it has gained respect from many stakeholders. We first replicated the volunteer strategy, having ambassadors, having people around the country who were going to disseminate the new 𝗦𝗢𝗖𝗓 survey, which asks people what they think of the SDGs and if they know the SDGs. But somehow we were contacted by universities, civil society organizations, small companies, big companies. And then it was like, oh, so there's an interest and there's a need that maybe the government is not covering, or maybe people do not understand well what we're doing with the SDGs. So they approached us. And that's how we decided to make it a social business, to kind of like stimulate and continue to expand what is 𝗦𝗢𝗖𝗓 Mexico now. So I started basically with the MDGs while I was like 18, 20. I started participating in academic spaces that kind of like empower people to talk about global issues, which were Model United Nations. And I've seen a switch since, for example, 2012 to now, in terms of that people are not only simulating the work of the United Nations, for example, in academic spaces, but they were actually, and they have been allowed, especially in the last 10 years, to have those spaces in the United Nations. And I think that it relates a lot to the exercise that we have seen in Mexico, because it was, for me, I started with an academic journey in spaces discussing global issues and acquiring tools, acquiring knowledge, acquiring speaking skills, research skills, interaction, speaking to other cultures. That's why I have the simulations of the UN, the Model UN, so close to my heart, because it gave me a lot of tools in terms of funding. I had to look for sponsors. I have to say that, yeah, I studied international relations, but half of the skills that I gained while I was studying came from getting involved in those spaces. So kind of like the strategy, the tools that I've learned, the way that I structured the trainings that you might recall back then, it was talking about global issues in a very simple way, and how those global issues are kind of like a mirror of what is happening on the local level, and what it's our responsibility, what it's our role. And of course, that notwithstanding the fact that, yes, we were young people and we might not be as experienced as people who have double our age or whatever, that we still have something to add. And I tell this all the time, while I was structuring 𝗦𝗢𝗖𝗓 in Jalisco, I had a boss who had a very orthodox and kind of like very squared vision of what someone like me, who was then 24, could do. So I had to convince him, I had to show him the strategy. And then 6-7 months later, we were able to be named one of the very few organizations in the world to have been mobilized a perfect strategy on volunteering and stakeholders that was recognized in one of the UN's biggest moments. And that is because I had the conviction that we had to structure a team who believed in it. And in order to do that, I had to believe in it. My core team of other 7 women, young women, all of them younger than me even, had to believe in that, had to believe in the idea that we have to tackle climate change, had to believe in the idea that we have to achieve gender equality, had to believe in the idea that everyone has the right to water and sanitation. But not only that, in order to do advocacy, in order to tell our governments what we want, we had to be informed of what was going on. It was not like, oh, participate in the survey. No, this has a purpose. This is going to shape the next global development agenda that's going to even, and you know it now, like even be part of our government structures, of our policies. So that's something that got their attention. But while we were doing that, while I was doing that, what I was replicating the knowledge that I acquired and the skills that I gained from all this academic experience, I saw that a lot of people in my generation had the same kind of like chip, and they were replicating other projects in different parts of the world. And then I saw a switch, because if you see young people back then when I was studying to young people now, they're much more involved in advocacy process. They have way more tools than we did. Yes, we had the internet, we had those advantages, but now they have social media, which is way faster than what we had. They have a way of coexisting and co-organizing, which is better. And that's why many of the processes we did as simulating spaces in the United Nations became a reality. And now, I don't know if you know this, Urbana, but since 2013, we have a special envoy on youth at the United Nations. We have a special, every conference of the UN has youth divisions, of has youth-led movements, of have something related to youth. So it became a cross-cutting issue across not only the United Nations, but the Sustainable Development Goals. All of them had youth focus. And that's something that is not as new, because I would say it has like 10 years, but it has to do a lot with the technology that we have, with the preparation that we had. And of course, and unfortunately, because the issues that we now have are going to affect young people more. So that's how we were able to attract so many people in this way. And then one of the things that I've always told the team in relation to your second question is that everything that we do, well, not now, but let's say 2 years ago, now that we were still volunteers, everything that we do, no matter if we're volunteers, has to be done professionally. Everything, from the materials, from the information, from the communication, from the advocacy process that we participate in, from the way that we introduce ourselves to government officials, from the way that we portray what we're doing with the private sector. And even because we still have volunteers, they're the strength of our organization. Everything that you see is done in very exceptional ways. So that's why we gained the credibility of other stakeholders, because we were very not only convinced of the cause, but also able to prove that we were professional while making all of those things. I would say that is what got their attention. The social business did not start with that purpose. So, and I've heard this message from many entrepreneurs around the world, is that first find that problem that you need to solve and then start a business. Don't start a business to solve a problem. And I think that what we did is a perfect example of that. When I finished my contract with Corporativa de Fundaciones, I got another position, and then I worked for almost 4 years for the United Nations in Colombia. I just came back in December, and we realized, thanks to the stakeholders that we attract, that our movement, or what started as volunteer-led organization or as a network, a national network, needed a legal establishment, was capable of getting funds, and was capable of having a structure that will allow it to grow. Meaning that we were asked, especially by our private sector partner, for certain services. As we gain experience throughout this year, especially in the last 4 years, we gained a lot of experience in development processes, in advocacy processes, in technical aspects of the agenda. I realized that I gained a lot of knowledge on the agenda, on the indicators, on the goals, and how not only the history, but how it's structured, what are the different processes, what is the meaning of the, for example, the key goals of the SDG 15 on land, life on land, or different like stuff. Then the private sector was the one that told us, you have a lot of knowledge on sustainability on the agenda. Some of them would dare to say that we knew a lot about the Sustainable Development Goals. And we helped a lot of organizations to align their internal policies into or with the aspect of the SDGs. So they were like, you need to do not a mean profitable business, but a social business with what you're doing. And I think you have the ability to do so. So last year, this is very recent, us gaining or making it a business is very recent. It's from end of 2019 to now. What we did is that we created a mentorship program, a 3-month mentorship program from different sectors, and we would sell that mentorship program through an online platform. This mentorship program is super professional because we continue to do it. And it gives you all the different background, all the different aspects of the 2030 agenda. What does the 2030 agenda implies for business? How the SDGs can be applied in civil society organizations? How can local governments do it? And then we were like, if this works well, and if it sells well, we can provide services. And if we can provide services, we can get funding. I mean, we can, like auto-sustain ourselves. And that's what we started to do. And then I realized it worked. And then I realized that people were asking us, how much does it cost to be a member organization of 𝗦𝗢𝗖𝗓 Mexico? So then we saw another opportunity there because we did a lot of professional work. I mean, we basically split into 2 jobs. We were for example, I was working in a very, very difficult process in Colombia, and I was dedicating my free time to something that eventually became so big that I had to come back to my country and run this entirely. So they were asking us to charge for fees, and then we can use those fees to continue to strengthen our ambassadors program. So for example, now our ambassadors are not only carrying around the SDGs and promoting the SDGs, but they receive hard training on the 2030 agenda. We accompany the volunteers to be situated in different projects that align to the SDGs. And they have done like incredible things. So basically how we are raising money now is through providing services. So now we have local governments asking us alignment of SDGs in state development plans or municipal development plans, or then we have the private sector asking us to provide a corporate responsibility strategy. Of course, we do that because in the team, we have professionals. We not only have their young people, we have some people who have PhDs, master's degrees. We have like a pool talent that allows us to do that. So that's why I say it started the other way around. It's not like we intentionally want to make money out of it, but the conditions and the structure and what we're doing had a value and had a monetary value. And it was worth for us to charge for the work that we have done because we have did it professionally for so many years. And that's how we're running it. So far, there are 2 ways in which we're collecting money. One is providing services, kind of like a consultancy firm, I would say, or an agency. And then from the membership program that we have. So it has worked well, and we'll see if we can expand that. We had a lot of interest from especially organizations and local governments and many different stakeholders that contact us every day. It's demanding, it's a demanding work, but I think it's worth it. So yeah, that's how we got here. I think that why it escalated a lot is because we saw a global movement that was taking place We saw that it was like a turning point for humanity to get together in one place and decide like common goals, design a common agenda, and then replicate that at the national and local levels. So I think for me, it was the vision that something is going on in the world, and then there's a place for us in there that's going on in the world. And I started it first because I wanted my land, I wanted my country, I wanted my people to participate and have a voice, a significant voice in that process. The most important thing that we have to do is work at the grassroots level. I'm working right now on a national initiative and a global initiative, and I have to, like have that very wide look and outlook and understand everything that's going on in different places at the same time. And it's very fascinating. But I wouldn't change that compared to the experience of executing a development project at the local level. I mean, just focus on one or two or three things that will solve a problem, either if it's in your community or your country or at the global level. Something that solves an issue that's unique, something that's professional, and of course, having the right people around. Because of course, it's not my role Mexico. Sometimes I don't like it when people associate it only to me, because we're a big team with different skills, with different ideas, with different paths of working. We not only work in the same time, we have different interests, and that helps a lot. So I think that it's key to finding something that solves an issue and find the right people. And of course, that you feel comfortable working on that. Because if I didn't believe in this, if people around me didn't believe in this, it wouldn't work. So you have to really believe in what you're doing. And of course, you have to be patient. You have to be very patient. For example, for me, coming from an international organization like the UN and working in the field and coming here and talking to all kinds of people, all kinds of organizations, it's challenging. It's very rewarding, but it's also very challenging. A few years ago, I would say, have patience, work with the right people, or never give up on your dreams. But there are two things that I will rescue, at least for me, that have worked well. And one of those is filter external negative voices in every aspect that you can. For me, it was like, why are you doing that? Well, you're 32, you should be doing this, or you don't plan to get married, or you don't plan to, I stopped listening to negative voices, or I stopped listening to people that would question, why do you live such an amazing work at the UN in another country to come run this? Because I think it's what makes me happy, what puts a smile on my face. Yes, it will make, because it challenged me, because it makes me feel useful, because it exploits my talent, because yes, maybe I was gaining much more money and recognitions in an organization that yes, was doing its job, but I wasn't feeling as free as I do here running something that allows me to exploit that.